Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Councilmember Rob Saka. I have the privilege of representing you all, residents of District 1, which includes where we're at, West Seattle, South Park, Pioneer Square, Soto, Georgetown. And it is an absolute, I want you all to know, I wake up every morning feeling honored to represent and serve you all, represent your best interests, and I aspire to be the best representative I can be and represent your voice in Seattle City Hall. So that's why it is important for me to be engaged and be out here with the community. So first off, a few things. Again, welcome everyone. I want to thank Charlotte and Steve for co-hosting. Where's Charlotte? Charlotte and Steve, thank you for co-hosting this event and helping to co-convene this important conversation. And there's a lot going on right now, so good news is I feel good about directing additional steps we can take collectively to do better. Councilmember Tanya Wu, my esteemed colleague, thank you for being here. So you all have 3 colleagues, or 3 representatives, 3 voices. I'm your primary, but feel free to reach out to me, Councilmember Wu, Council President, also a council member. These are citywide positions. And it's a great group. Honored. Thank you, Councilmember Wu, for being here. And importantly, our executive department partners. We have a Director Walton from the Mayor's Office. Thank you. We'll do some quick intros here in just a moment. And Chief Rohr, thank you for being here. Welcome to the city after 3 weeks. This is the opportunity. This is the opportunity you have. I just got out of a meeting, an unrelated meeting with Chief Rohr, so and I found her to be a great initial partner here. So thank you for joining. Also, Park Superintendent AP Diaz is here. Thank you for being here. Last but not least, our SDOT partners. We have Francisca and Vinu. Welcome. Again, they will introduce themselves momentarily here in just a bit, but I also want to thank Elaine and Layla. Where are they at? Yep, there they are. It takes a lot of work to convene and organize something like this and share out newsletters and draft legislation and amendments, and I'm proud I have my footprint, my fingerprint on all the key pieces of legislation that we passed, and we're able to do that because of the work of Elaine and Layla and so many public servants that are working hard on your behalf. You don't even know are involved or exist. So grateful for their work. But look, we know how important these ongoing conversations are and will continue to be. We're here to talk about public safety. And first off, I want to express my condolences to the family, to the victims. Again, tragically, we lost another young person to gun violence in our city. And someone else was injured. And we have at least one person here in this very center of worship, this very church, who was also victimized and had their home shot. And what happened on Saturday morning was unacceptable. And as your elected representative, I will fight to do more. And after that happened, I responded on scene in the morning, spoke with some of our first responder heroes, some of your colleagues, Officer Barreto, some folks from SFD who happened to be there as well, and got a quick briefing on the spot, what was going on. I ended up calling one of the 2 people who had their homes shot up, and me and my office have been working feverishly on your behalf to do things like convene this important conversation, which is why we're here. Quick ground rules. Want to remind all of us that we are all neighbors. All of us, we are neighbors. And I understand there's a lot of passion and emotions going on right now. This is deep stuff. This is tragic stuff. We should all be outraged. I am. But we also need to keep things civil, be respectful of each other's, because at the end of the day, we're all neighbors. So that is my hope and expectation for the night going forward. And I want you also to understand that like we all hold many roles. As the chair of the Transportation Committee or the Council's Transportation Committee, I've been leading a very intensive and exciting council review process of a levy that has been occupying a lot of my time. But I view my mandate as being elected as public safety, so we've been going pretty hard on the public safety front as well. Some good initial progress, way more work to do, as evidenced by some of the things that happened. And so, but first, let me quickly allow me to share 5 specific legislative actions and concrete steps that me and my council member colleagues have already taken in my first 6 months in office to specifically address public safety. First, police hiring is up. A few months ago, we passed and approved a new police contract that made the Seattle Police Department the most competitive paid department in the state, as well it should be. We're already seeing a huge surge. I think Director Walton reported this, but 13, maybe I don't have the exact numbers, but under the data, we're seeing an average of 13 weekly applications for new officers. Before we approved that contract, we saw a weekly average of 5. So we're already seeing an uptick in interest in hiring. It's going to take a while, guys. But it is an important first step that we can and must take, and I'm proud to have supported that. Second, we've taken action to address unsafe vacant buildings. Last month in May, our council, and I'm proud to support it, we passed landmark legislation to give the fire chief more tools to address dangerous vacant buildings. Third thing we did, we helped streamline and simplify the SPD officer recruitment and hiring process. Last month we passed a bill, a key bill to do exactly that. To make our process, remove some of the red tape and the bureaucracy and get unstuck from Seattle's process. So we did that to make sure our process matched more with some of our neighboring jurisdictions, who, by the way, were also competing fiercely for talent of officers. So little things like that, I'm confident and hopeful that we'll start to yield results. And then last week or the week before, sorry, it all runs together, but we passed some great legislation to combat and take stronger action against stolen cars. We expanded and automated license plate reader tooling. Instead of tooling in technology, we know smash and grabs are deeply impacting our community, and stolen cars and so many follow-up and secondary crimes as a result of stolen cars. So we're giving our officers, our police, more tools with some important privacy safeguards to better help automate and track and take action on those things. So. And finally, look, I recognize that there's been an erosion of trust between elected leaders at the city level and our frontline rank and file officers over the past few years. And that's the facts. And that's why I've taken a lot of effort and time and attention to literally visit and show up and attend various roll calls at various precincts. It's not a legislative action, there's not a shiny piece of paper you can hang and say, oh, this is what we did. But you gotta build trust. Trust is one of those things that's really difficult to earn. It's easy to erode. And so I'm committed, and it's not just our police. I think a lot of our first responder heroes appreciate seeing some of the new collaboration. So in any event, on a going forward basis, I think there's a few key things that we can continue to do. One is the Duwamish space. I support a SDOT redesign of that area to either reconfigure that area to eliminate the parking or convert it to parallel only parking. Second, I've been very vocal about my strong support for speed cameras, speed enforcement cameras. know you all are as well. And then next, I'm proud to announce that today there's a brand new set of very specific design solutions involving lane configuration and parking in that area that our experts at SDOT are ready to start building and implementing today. Well, not literally today, but you get my point. And so they will share details here shortly on what those are. And then finally, in the Public Safety Committee, I heard a couple people were shaking some hands before this, like, take stronger action on speed racing. And I want you all to know we are. Yesterday at our public safety hearing, City Attorney Davidson introduced and we discussed her proposed legislation to help us crack down on problem speed racing. And here's a heads up, I will have my own amendments to make that even better. To address some of the challenges that are not only impacting this community, but really felt citywide. So, that said, get signs on the arms, I'm a normal human being, just like every last one of you all. Don't forget that. Anyways, I would like to let my council colleague introduce herself, say a few words. Welcome, Councilmember Wolf.
Thank you. You have a phenomenal council member here who listens and who represents you well, and so very excited and so very honored to serve with Councilmember Saka to be here tonight. We have a new council, and we all agree that public safety is our priority, and working together, making sure that we are supporting our officers, making sure they have the tools and the resources, such as license plate readers, where they can supplement now that we are not fully staffed yet. And so we are looking at all these things in collaboration and in unity and working towards a common goal. And so we all agree that we have to work together to get things done and to make our streets safer. And so I am here to listen, I'm here to learn, and to support in efforts to make our community safer. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Steve Pumphrey, and I'm standing in a pool of Rob sweat. Rob, thank you for convening this, and all of you here at this nice. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. For those of you that don't know me, I'm one of 3 founders of the Harbor Avenue Alki neighborhood group. The other 2 are Mike Hain and Deb Hendrickson. And today, that started about 2 years ago, and today we have over 160 members in that organization. We've had successes. We were instrumental, along with our partners at the city, in getting the terrible RV encampment off of Harbor Avenue. We were able to clear out the Fairmont green space, which entailed hauling away about 8 tons of garbage from encampments. But we're not ready to stop. We need to move on. Unfortunately, the death of Luis Angel Saturday morning in front of my home, and yes, I'm the guy with the hole in the bullet hole in the window, is triggering this meeting more than anything else. And I feel very, very badly for his death. His family was out there the other day, and you could tell they were torn up. 22-year-old did not deserve to die. And we have to think about what's going on. And I think it's really the fact nothing happens in a vacuum. We have, we defunded police, we all know that. We have courts that somehow don't want to seem to deal with issues, especially dealing with young people that are on the beginning of going down the wrong path. And I think that we have to realize that people are coming from out of the area because we have a magnet here where they can come and party and race and drink and do drugs. And that has got to be somehow changed. Now, we can't legislate all that away. And we certainly can't make it go away by enforcement because we don't have the officers today to do that. But we can change the environment. And I think that's what our group is proposing now, is that we work on changing the environment. How do we do that? Well, we look at our structures, and Rob just mentioned something that was a surprise to me, and I'm happy to hear it, that SDOT is working on some changes to the streets. If we can re-engineer and redesign our streets, our parking spaces, and some of the other areas that attract these people that want to come here and cause mayhem, perhaps we can stop it. I don't think we'll ever stop at 100%, but if we make it harder for them to be here and do what they do, then we're going to win. So be patient, help us work with the city. We're really trying to make the thing work as partners. We can't stand around and just complain and do nothing. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Charlotte Stark, President of Alki Community Council, and thank you all for coming. We actually meet, we're a nonprofit, non-political, volunteer neighborhood group that's been around since the mid-1980s. I've just been president, it's an honor, since January, along with Lindsay Pearsall, who's our vice president in LinkedIn, if she can wave, I don't know where she's at, there she is. And so we've been super busy. One of the things that we've been really working on is uniting the community and keeping the priorities of crime and traffic front and center as well. And so our role in how we support the community, because believe me, I get asked to be the pit bull in everybody's fight, and that's not physically doable with the time that I have. And although I would love to help out, but what we work for are those commonalities, and the way we make progress is by bringing civic leaders together with the neighborhood group, and that's open to anyone, and we meet actually right here in the back foyer. And we have that goal of distributing and for city leaders to obtain first-rate information, so they hear it first from you, you get the face-to-face time with the leaders, and it's not filtered with any agenda. That is a huge gain, and I don't go for 100% consensus because we're not going to get there. If we're 80%, we all want to live in a safe place, in a more peaceful place, then it's a win-win for everyone. And there's nuances in between, but that's the end goal. So one of the reasons I got involved was kind of like Steve. Crime ended up on my front doorstep. It actually blew out 40 feet of the side of my property when a street racer missed the corner coming down 56th. So, and that was the first time I was hit. The second, we didn't have a physical injury. When I say I, it's the property. We had a minor incident with another vehicle that crossed lanes and landed in our front yard. Our neighbor's been affected as well with the vehicle going through there, and we also have gunfire on our street down the center of Alki. So 338 caliber bullets. The West Seattle blog covered that incident into a kitchen window just for kicks, apparently, a random shooting, and then another one 6 houses down from us was a 22 caliber bullet. So the gunfire that we're talking about has been an ongoing, growing problem as we've seen the decline of our police force and just a lack of lawfulness. It's just lawlessness that we're all trying to get our arms around, and Chief, we're, no small task, right? So what we want to do, and what we agree on, is that what we've observed in Alki, probably not different than other neighborhoods, is that as crime lands on your front doorstep, quite literally, you get really upset. You get angry. There are people hurt, property lost, businesses leave. I know of a couple looking to leave Alki. I won't name them. But we need to get it under control. And we've seen different streets, street by street activation, which we as a neighborhood recognize we need to do a better job of bringing a unified voice, because then it's a siloed conversation where one person's talking to SDOT, another one's talking to police. It's not all aligned. And so this collective effort is really the biggest accomplishment, I think, in neighborhood safety for all of us. Rob, we can't thank you enough for bringing us together. We want to do our part, advocate for all of us together, because the plan has to be all of Alki as Seattle's #1 beach destination, where we have micro-local, local, state, national and international tourism, as well as the people who live here. This cannot be a siloed conversation anymore, and the best outcome we can achieve, I think, is exactly what we've been talking about: environmental barriers, and also supporting police with more technology. So when you said cameras, it's like flock cameras are in 47 states, 5,000 cities. I've been researching it a lot, and I'm really hoping we can get that here too. So thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much. Now we're going to, let's just go ahead, as Councilmember Saka had said, we're just going to go ahead and have some introductions.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, yeah, all the key decision makers, well, I mean, many of them from the city's perspective are in this room. We work collaboratively together. We're not going to, as Steve noted, we're not going to legislate our way out of this. We're not going to enforce our way out of this. But there are some specific improvements and things that that's one of the goals, to walk away with some specific actions. But all the people, the key people with respect to the underlying reason that we're in this room many of them are in this room. I speak regularly with the mayor, and unfortunately, in 5 days notice or whatever, busy person, like we all are, but we are very closely aligned and committed to doing this work. So, to our distinguished guests and leaders from the city, if you wouldn't mind going down the line and just saying who you are and your role with the city. Thank you.
Good afternoon or good evening, everybody. My name is Natalie Walton Anderson, and I am the new Director of Public Safety for the Mayor's Office. I'm new to the Mayor's Office, but I'm not new to West Seattle or even this work. I live just a mile up the hill. I have 3 boys. I walk Alki almost every night. And I just want to thank Councilmember Saka for hosting and bringing this event together. And I also want to thank all of you for being here and carrying it. I'm sorry that it's many tragic accidents, even the incident that happened last night with one of our residents who was injured has brought us together. I did speak with the mayor. He called me right before leaving for this event, and he is sorry he can't be here, but I feel very confident in saying the mayor cares deeply about gun safety. He recognizes the issues with Alki that we've had in the time I've been here for 18 years, always in the summer, and it continues to increase and feel brazen. So I'm going to pass it over. I think we are also incredibly lucky to have Chief Rar in this position for the time that she's here. I had the pleasure of watching her work when she was the King County Sheriff, as did many of us, and so I'm going to pass that over. I will say, because I live just up the hill, I'm happy to stay for questions beyond 7:30 if people want to talk. I would love to listen more about your concerns, because I want to be able to do my part in terms of this role. Thank you.
So thank you all for inviting all of us to be here. Before I start, I want to introduce the brain trust that I'm going to rely on, because I'm so new to this assignment. Officer Barretto, he took me on the Insider's Tour a couple of evenings ago, and we drove around, and his knowledge is deep and long, and he has some good ideas. Our new precinct commander, Captain Bear, she's new to this assignment, but she's not new to West Seattle, and she has a lot of experience as a leader. She knows how to lead cops, and so I'm very happy that you're here. And our community service officer, Denise Lopez, I'm very excited to let you know she is assigned to the Southwest Precinct. She's no longer responding out of headquarters. She's going to be embedded in this community along with a couple of other community service officers. We can go ahead and get comfortable. I'm really just a figurehead right now, and I think it's important that you know the people who know your community inside out. I also want to start with saying I am sorry that you have to be here tonight for this type of situation. I would much rather see a community gathering to celebrate, and hopefully at some point in the future we will celebrate that we have been able to improve safety. I also want to bring a little bit of reality to the game of the time we're living in right now. The Surgeon General just came out to name gun violence as our #1 public safety crisis. And it's been a little bit shocking to me. I was a King County Sheriff from, well, I left the department in 2012, I was gonna say since 79. I joined as a deputy in 79, I wasn't the sheriff for 33 years. But I also had 9 years at the police academy where I learned a lot about how we train our police officers and sheriff's deputies. And then I was just thoroughly enjoying retirement when Tim Burgess called me and made me an offer I couldn't refuse. But I want to tell you, the 12 years that I have been out of law enforcement, a lot has changed. And I will tell you, it's shocking to me, the escalation in gun violence and the escalation in just general lawlessness and disregard for community mores. It's as if our social fabric is coming unraveled. And having a group like this together tonight is very heartening because this tells me people are interested in getting that shored up again. And so I think the more that we pull together and work together, hopefully we can get on top of what's happening and try to reverse that trend working together. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Councilmember. Thank you, city partners, for being here. My name is AP Diaz. I'm the superintendent of Seattle Parks and Recreation. I have the privilege of being our park superintendent. We have 500 parks in the city of Seattle, and I can probably guarantee most of you thoroughly love your parks. It's what makes our city unique and special and so attractive and such a wonderful place to call home. We too are struggling to best serve the needs of our entire system because up until just a year ago, when I first came here on the job a year ago, we only had 2 park rangers for 500 parks. 2 park rangers. It's ridiculous. And thankfully, you all voted into our parks levy the authority to increase that to 28 park rangers. And we just did that. And we, within record time, filled all of those spots because that's how important it is to do it, and that's how much people love to give in service with our other public safety partners here. But the park rangers were only limited to working downtown, and that's why the metric of 28 was established. We worked really hard to say we need to remove that barrier so that our park rangers can actually work citywide and serve all of the residents, including in West Seattle. And we finally got that barrier restricted. So now we have 28 park rangers for the entire city of Seattle, and again, for 500 parks. So it's not enough, we need to do more. The opportunity will come, again, where you can support various projects in our cycle. We're hoping that you will be supportive of this ask. I know the mayor wants to grow our park ranger program. I know our police partners, and I know residents would love to see more park rangers. And so we're beginning now to begin to do the citywide distribution plan and work really closely, more closely with the police department and other city partners on this issue as it's emerging because we want to be able to take care of our parks. The wonderful thing about our parks is that they are gathering spaces and they're backyards and they're family spaces and we all have fun in them. But because they're open, they attract sometimes not the best element and we need to be able to respond to that. And so right now, we're doing the best that we can with limited resources, but we can also do other things, and I think some of the things we're going to talk about tonight are adjusting hours of operations when needed, doing closures when needed, doing environmental changes, and looking at other alternatives to combating these issues. So we hear you loud and clear. We've got great partners at this table. We are also community members and residents, and also have our frustrations with our entire city, so know that we have a vested interest to come up with better solutions. And so today is just a start to hear some of the things that are going on here in Seattle, and we look forward to talking to you about it more.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Princess and I work for the Director's Department in the Seattle Department of Transportation. I'm the Senior Deputy Director. And I want to extend also my condolences for the tragedies that you're experiencing in your neighborhood and your gratitude for you for being here tonight to be part of of a solution, to be part of a dialogue. And I'm really quite eager to hear from you and hear what you're experiencing to better understand. Unfortunately, Councilmember Saka stole a lot of our thunder from SDOT in that we have been looking at some ways that we can partner in ways that address some of the design that complement the very important and hard work that our colleagues in public safety do every day to help curb some of the unwanted, uncivil behaviors, antisocial behaviors. And I just want to share a personal note. I don't live in West Seattle, but I do live in a community in Seattle that experiences drifting every night. I hear it on Friday nights out of my bedroom window, so I understand the feeling that it is to feel like people are taking advantage of the space that is ours as a community and using it in ways that it's not designed for and it's not intended for, and frankly is dangerous for all of us. So I really do appreciate you being here and being part of this. Vanu, my esteemed colleague, can speak a little bit about some of the things that we have been thinking about at SDOT that can complement and extend some of the improvements we've been making over the past couple of years. You've seen the speed cushions that have gone in already. They have yielded reductions in speed, and you've seen some of the things we put in the center delineators to also limit the ways that people can abuse space, because it is about abuse of space, in addition to sort of just choosing to do things that we aren't inviting into the community. We can talk more about this in Q&A, but I'm also very interested to hear about what you're experiencing and get more of a flavor, and I just want to say thank you for being here tonight.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Venu Nimani. I'm the Chief Transportation Safety Officer and the City Traffic Engineer with the Seattle Department of Transportation. I'm glad to be here and be part of this conversation. I really look forward to collaborate on the various concerns that you are sharing here today and have shared with us. So I look forward to collaborating with you. I'll hold my comments on specific actions for just a little bit later in the program and go into some of the details about what we are looking at, what we are proposing, and then we later in the program. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And actually, as I said, we had culled the best that we could, some of the top questions that we heard that you sent us this last day. So this is really going to be for you now. So I'm going to read 3 questions, and we're right on time. I'm going to end it at 7 so that there's time for you all to ask your questions. So the questions to Department of Transportation, there's 3. Speed cameras. Councilmember Saka spoke about the speed camera legislation. What's the latest accurate, updated information about speed cameras? Because there have been varying stories that have been floating around. That's the first question. Speed bumps, speed cushions. What are your plans, including the area north of the water taxi? Or actually, no, south. Sorry, south. That way. And in general, monitoring speeding. Do we have to wait until past summer for action? The third question is permit parking around Alki. It's so congested that police cars and first responders cannot get through and eliminate, can you eliminate traffic altogether on 56th to 61st Avenue Southwest? Those are the 3 questions.
Thank you so much, Elaine. Thanks for your questions. So let me take them one by one. So let me first talk about speed safety cameras. Right? It's, as you all know, last year our council passed an ordinance that designated several racing zones across the city, and that included both Alki Avenue and Harbor Avenue, and identified kind of like those zones as potential locations where we could install what they call at the time was racing zone cameras, which was how the state legislation used to call, but effectively what those cameras are there for is to address the speed enforcement. Right? Now, the funding for installing any of those speed cameras has not been identified or have been adopted in the budget for this year after that ordinance was passed. So, and since then, the state law itself has changed. There's a new law that came into effect this June on safety cameras. And what it did was it basically continued that ability to install speed safety cameras on segments that are identified as high crash risk, where there's speeding concerns, and to do that with identifying both the safety need, but also looking at the equity implications and with inclusive community input. So the new state law now requires us to do a lot more documentation in terms of justifying new locations, but unfortunately in the adopted budget for 2024, we have not, funding has not been identified for speed safety cameras. But that said, we don't have to, while we are at the SDOT are having a lot of conversations, because the new state law has implications on how our Seattle Municipal Code needs to be changed and updated to accommodate the new state law. And we are having really robust conversations internally on how we can develop a comprehensive, holistic policy on how we can identify and install various safety cameras that are authorized by the state law, including speed safety cameras, and deploy them where we identify specific safety needs and where we can balance the various equity considerations and take into account the inclusive community input as we move forward. So right now we are working towards developing that policy that we hope to complete later this fall and take a more systemic and approach to looking at pursuing speed safety cameras or other types of cameras across the city. Now, with that said, I'll kind of transition to question number 2, is that we don't have to, while this conversation is happening, we can take some interim steps to help address some of your speeding concerns that you're seeing right here, right? As you all know, back in 2022, fall of 2022, we did install several speed cushions on Harbor Avenue approaching the water taxi line, right? And in preparation for today's meeting, I was kind of looking at how effective have they been? And what our data tells us, looking at the speeds that we had back then in 2022 and now here in 2024, is that those speed cushions that we have installed have been very effective in bringing down not only the average speeds that we are seeing on that section, but also some of the maximum speeds that we are seeing, right? So we can continue to pursue in the interim that solution, basically to install more speed cushions between the water taxi landing and further coming all the way down to the Alki Beach proper, and also the locations south of Fairmont, basically, right, approaching that section. So we can. Thank you so much. So we are already kind of like working. Our staff is working on identifying specific locations, trying to get their designs right, and they're already working on that. So that is one thing that I bring to you. The second thing is that one thing that as we are having these conversations, what we have realized is that the lane widths between on both Harbor Avenue all the way coming down on Alki Avenue, coming down to 63rd, are more than what they need to be, right? The lane widths are anywhere from 13 to 15 feet, and in some locations they're as big as 20 feet. Now we all know that when you have a wider lane, that basically encourages more speeding and higher operating speeds. So one thing that we are proposing is to reduce that lane width to somewhere between 10 and 11 feet, right, across that entire segment on both Alki Avenue and Harbor Avenue from 63rd going all the way down to Fairmont. And we are looking at how we can restripe the lanes and make it narrower so that the road and these two roads and streets, right, can naturally look narrower and naturally elicit a more lesser operating speed and a more calmer traffic calming behavior across these two segments. So those are two immediate things that we can do right away, and we are planning to pursue those things Definitely this summer, right? But with a little bit more due diligence, we can give a better timeline for when we can install them, because we are trying to figure out the logistics of how to kind of like move various elements, kind of like various teams within a start to make this happen. So we're aiming for to complete those two, installing the new speed machines and restriking both Alki Avenue and Harbour Avenue to narrower lane widths to promote slower speeds and calm traffic in general, right? So those are the engineering improvements that we are
The
looking
third
at.
question, if you can kind of wrap that up.
Yeah, the third question is related to parking, and also kind of like that specific question was between how can we, what if we restrict traffic between, you say 56 and 60 bus, right? So that needs to be a little bit more larger conversation, because when you restrict traffic on a major artery like that, you need to be cognizant or be aware of, or fully aware of what the secondary impacts of that is going to be, where the traffic is going to go. We don't want to have an unintended consequence of shifting the traffic through the neighborhood streets. So we need to take a little bit more time to explore that idea and do our due diligence before pursuing that. But that I would kind of like put it out to probably looking at it more thoroughly with the community, and the various parking that was identified. We are also looking at to see how we can engage with you and see how and what we can do to better manage our parking on both Alki and Harbour Avenue. So with that, thank you so much.
Thank you, Daniel. So those are some specific actions City is taking on your behalf to address those concerns. I do want to quickly clarify something, because there seems to be a little like telephone game, and which I totally understand. There's a lot of stakeholders involved, and because I spoke directly with the mayor most recently about this specific issue yesterday, he made crystal clear funding is not an issue, folks. Funding is not an issue. Instead, it is some administrative overhead challenges associated with operationalizing and deploying these cameras as a result of the new state law and other things. Again, non-trivial challenges associated with operationalizing and studies and planning. It takes a while, unfortunately. So, funding is not an issue. For crystal clarity. And even if it was an issue, folks, my highest priority is public safety. I will make sure, even if it were an issue, we will find funding in the budget if needed, but that is not the blocker. But regardless, there is clear partnership and alignment. We need those, and we're committed to deploying them on your behalf. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember. Great partnership.
Okay, we have another set of questions that came through to us. This is for the police department or also the mayor's office. The first one is a tough one. How can SPD do better on holding accountable perpetrators of gun violence? That's the first question. There's two more. Okay. But they're related. Okay. What about parking enforcement officers? They need to be around at night. What about emphasis patrols? What are your plans? Knowing that there's a police shortage felt throughout the city immediately, what are more aggressive measures that can be done, like adding, like we said, the emphasis patrols, adding police checkpoints in and out of the area? That seems a little drastic, but that was a number of people raised that. Can there be some checkpoints in and out of the area just in the summer months, like scanning license plates, whatever? We just need more presence in this area, particularly in the summer, because it's a deterrent.
Alrighty, I'll try and, I might not get this in the exact order. I'll start with the one that's probably most achievable, and that is parking enforcement. One of the things that stood out to me when I took my little tour a couple of days ago is just the blatant disregard for parking lots. Loretta was taking me around, and we see all these cars parked in the parking lot that's designated for boat trailers, and it was full of cars. And, there's signs everywhere. And, I thought, holy cow, clearly this is a habit that has formed in this community that needs to be broken. And I know why that happens. I don't have to repeat 100 times to you that we're short-staffed. But it's clear that the atmosphere of rules don't matter seems to have taken hold. And so what we're going to try to do within the Seattle Police Department, we've got several really severe hotspots in the city. And I've elevated Alki, the beach area, to our fifth hotspot to get some immediate focus there. So I've talked with our parking enforcement team. We're putting together a team of parking enforcement officers to focus on that parking lot both in the afternoon and evening, and then we're figuring out how to put a night shift together so that we can target the 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. So that's the aspiration, and now I'm going to tell you the truth. We put up sign-ups for officers to work overtime because we're going to have all of these emphasis activities have to be done in overtime because, as you all know, we're short about 400 officers right now, and so to do any kind of emphasis, we have to do it on overtime. This weekend coming up, we have a major Pride event. We have several citywide events. And so I've got to figure out whether I have to force officers to work overtime to come and provide security for our traffic enforcement officers. I'm not going to send the traffic enforcement officers who are unarmed to come in late at night to try and deal with this, but we will get them out here during the afternoon, and I really do believe if we start to shift the atmosphere and the climate, that rules matter and we will enforce the rules. I think that will help a lot. We'll get that started. I know over the course of my career when people complain about speeding, back in the day when we had enough cops and we would put speed traps out, often the people who complained got stopped for speeding. I don't think that's going to be the case here because I don't think anybody in this room probably parks in that trailer parking lot, so I'm not too worried about that. So I will commit to you for the next several weeks at least, we're going to get as many traffic enforcement officers out there as I can. As with the park rangers, I have a limited force and we have a lot of needs in the city, but I think I can get this going, I hope this weekend, on the traffic enforcement. In terms of holding perpetrators of gun violence accountable, boy oh boy. Again, I need to invoke some honesty here. We live in a gun culture, folks, and we have our society, our culture celebrates guns. And we've got a lot of young people who are still reeling from the pandemic. Our social fabric has frayed, and you put that together with guns everywhere, and the police department is not going to turn that around. We will do everything we can, but I want to be honest with you, it is out of control. We had one shooting scene this past weekend, 164 spent casings on the ground. That is the result of rampant gun culture. So we have a lot of work to do to shift that because when there's that many guns out in the community, that many volatile kids who for any variety of reasons are angry and acting out, bad things are going to happen. Now, the question about holding the perpetrators accountable, we're going to do everything we can to identify and arrest perpetrators. I had a real dose of reality after the student was shot at Garfield High School. I thought, oh my God, this is a horrible thing. We have all these witnesses. Surely we will be able to bring the perpetrator to justice right away. And then I was hit with a dose of reality. Number one, I was not aware, because I've been out of the business for a couple of years, that our officers are not allowed to go out and confront juveniles and detain them to take a statement. And so we have not been able to obtain statements from many of the eyewitnesses in that situation. Then we have to get a series of search warrants to get the phone records to identify where people are. I know I'm on the verge of sounding like I'm whining, but I want you to understand there's a lot of barriers that are new into our criminal justice system when it comes to bringing perpetrators to justice. I'm going to be working with the prosecutor's office to clarify how far we can go in terms of reaching out and talking to juveniles and at least interviewing them as witnesses. But that is a big problem because, as you probably know, a lot of this gun violence is perpetrated by juveniles. And so on the one hand, the law I know was well-intentioned to protect juveniles, but what's happened is juveniles are now more at risk because the likelihood of perpetrators being arrested is much lower because we don't have the tools we need to do that. When we are putting everything we can on the table to get these folks under arrest, but this past weekend, it was a wild weekend. We had 7 different shooting scenes, and I lost track of the total number of casings, but it is a huge challenge. In terms of holding them accountable, that's up to the courts and our legislature, and I encourage all of you to stay very active and aware of what laws are being passed. And, you know, I think we've watched the pendulum swing in this state, and I think people are starting to recognize that maybe there needs to be a little bit of an adjustment. There for sure was a need to make some of the police reform measures. I supported a lot of the police reform measures, but some of them have had unintended consequences. And I think this is a wake-up call for us this summer to say, did we get it right or do we need to make some adjustments? My third question, the more aggressive measures, putting in traffic checkpoints. I don't know that is legal. I don't know what the constitutional law is. I'm going to have to sit down with my legal advisors because I honestly, as I stand before you, I don't know what the restrictions are on putting checkpoints in. I would be surprised if that was something we would be able to do. But we can certainly do everything we can to make this a less inviting environment for kids to come and gather and drink and shoot off their firearms. I think if we shift the climate of the lawlessness and we start enforcing laws, we get those parking lots emptied out by 11 o'clock. We're going to work with our park partners and get those gates locked at either end of that big parking lot. We're going to take every step we can to make it a less attractive place for kids to gather and get into trouble and hurt one another.
Thank you, Chief Barr. I do have to just comment briefly on a very profound and salient point you just mentioned about the juvenile questioning statute, because folks, our community, that came up in the context of Garfield. Our community was directly impacted by that very same law. And we're here because this is the second homicide in my district. But the very first homicide happened to one of our neighbors, just south in West Seattle, just south in High Point. 15-year-old Mubarak Kadam was killed. And that law, I think, was a barrier to giving his family and our broader community answers that they so desperately deserve and need. And I've sat in the most difficult thing that I've had to do. Anyways, there's an opportunity there at the state level. I've done an analysis. The state law was modeled after a Seattle City ordinance and a King County ordinance, great intent. And so that was passed at the state level. Instead of using the city ordinance as a base, they actually went above and beyond, you know, the big, bold, progressive Seattle ordinance, and they made it even more stringent. We had a reasonable interpretation of implementation of that, you know, when our frontline officers were investigating. But I think the solution is a legislative one at the state level, and I'm committed to advocating strongly for that on behalf of Mubarak Adam's family. And shout out to Mercuritu is somewhere here. I see you. And we need to do better. But in any event, that is a very important piece of like it's not just going to be the city. It's not just going to be the county or Seattle Public Schools. It's going to take all of us. In that case, I'm going to be advocating next legislative session to add some clarification language to make sure we can actually talk to people and investigate. Thank you.
I know we're running on time. We're trying to run on time. I just want to say a couple of things about the questions that were just passed. You know, one of the questions was how can SPD hold individuals who are involved in gun violence responsible and accountable? And it's not just SPD's role. It's the court's role, it's the King County prosecutor's role, it's the city attorney's role, it's all of our role to do so. And so I just want to urge everybody when we're talking about this legislation, the information on who sponsors those bills, who's supportive of those bills, we have to continue to pay attention. We have people's attention right now because gun violence is so scary. But these bills come up, they're available for public comment, and we have to pay attention because the impacts are huge. The inability to pursue law is one that's been really problematic. I know because I was a prosecutor for 18 years. This juvenile bill is incredibly problematic in order to get information, and I want to recognize that the intent was to protect, but I just want people to understand our legislators in Olympia represent us, and we need to pay attention to that. Just like we need to pay attention to who is elected for prosecutor, who is elected for judges. There is information on those judges as well, and I just want to I want to encourage people to keep paying attention to that. The last thing is it's difficult. Thank you. It's difficult for me to continue to hear how we are moving officers from place to place when we have a shortly staffed police department. And this is something else, well, I would say this is going to take all of us. I am asking all of you to recruit. I brought cards tonight. I try and hand out at least 3 a day. We had an individual who was, I think, 62 that just passed the academy. Public service is a thankless but amazing job. And this is my 28th year in public service. And I dream about it, I think about it, but I am encouraging all of you. Do you know a young person, security? Maybe you are retired and want to have a second or third career, but SPD is hiring and we cannot get through this shortage of officers and other civilian supports for our officers unless we start recruiting and asking people to serve in this capacity, and that could even be you. So I will leave these cards, but we have to help. All of us have to help in terms of the recruiting so that we can see those improvements for our officers that are so burned out and are going from place to place to try and be proactive on those things, but there's a shortage. So I'm asking people, I bring cards everywhere, but please think about that and think about who you can recruit as well.
I really appreciate that because recruiting is huge. And something that's key to our recruiting right now, our message is we have a different city council in 2024 than we did in 2020. One of the things that I am obligated to do during my 6-month service here as the interim is to try and help recruit a new chief. And one of the top things that I will be talking about is that we have a shift in Seattle City government. And I have met with each and every council member since I've come on board, and each one to a person has said, what can I do to help? Public safety is important to me. That's what I lead with when I'm recruiting people, because that was one of the messages that made it difficult. So I really want to thank our council members for what you've done. In the mayor's office, the mayor has also been amazing. He told me, you come in and I'll let you run the department. And he has kept his word. And I've done some stuff that he's let me do.
Talk about these things. One subject all night. Our last section and topic is with parks. And Superintendent is free to introduce your awesome team. But let me go through the questions and then feel free to introduce them. Can the gates at Don Armani Boat Launch be changed as it has become a parking lot and ongoing car shows are burning their tires and playing loud music all the time? Second, can you shut down Hamilton View Park after 9 p.m.? There's car gangs, congregate, they chase each other down California, and then they race along Harbor Avenue. And third that we heard was restricting Alki access. I think there were some comments already about that, but that has come up consistently as well. So those are the questions. Is there a way that can be done?
So the short short answer is yes on all of them. This is a problem that's happening at Magnuson and Golden Gardens and on Lake Washington, at Stan Sayers and at Alki. These are the hot spots that we know. The weather gets nice, people want to go down to the lake and they want to be at the park system. And then unfortunately bad things are happening. So the great news is that the city charter has general prescribed rules of hours of operations for parks. However, I am empowered to adjust those hours as needed to deal with health and safety or public safety. So, for instance, we just implemented, not directly related to this, but because sometimes issues happen with beach fires going too late, we've actually pulled back the hours at Alki for the summer period, and then we'll extend them again in the fall. But we can also do that to help abate the street racing and the criminal conduct and the drinking and the late night activity that is going on. And so I will be working with the chief and her team. My team is here as well. Our head of our park ranger and emergency management unit, John Hyanga, is here. Deputy Superintendent Daisy Katagi is here, and our Director of Facilities, our Director of Parks and Environment, Carson and Markeith are here. They can also talk to you after this. I would be remiss because the chief and the mayor's office and the underlying conversation we're talking about also is gun violence, which is really prevalent and an urgent issue here in Seattle. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention to you, because I think, as the chief was saying, you need to be aware, as the mayor's office was saying, you need to be aware. Do you know that we've had a shooting, right, at Southwest Teen Life Center, and we've had 3 shootings near Garfield High School, and a shooting in the Garfield Teen Life Center. Do you know it is not illegal to bring a firearm into a Teen Life Center or a park site? It's illegal to bring a gun into a school, as it should be, to a hospital, to the airport, to city council. And this last year, in this last legislation, the state legislature applauded with fanfare, and the city did, as they should, that the legislature passed. Now it's illicit to bring a firearm into the aquarium, the zoo, and libraries. But parks was in that bill, and community centers was in that bill, and it was pulled. So, state, and right, and the city of Seattle tried to reverse that years ago and implemented, but it's at the state level because state law preempts certain things. That's just the way the law works. So I want you to be aware of that, because the mayor is committed to keep being bullish on this issue. And when you go to Garfield High School or the Southwest Teen Life Center or any Teen Life Center, the public doesn't know the difference. You go into a school, but you go across the parking lot, but you then can go into different jurisdictions of the Teen Life Center. And so our employees too are fearful. They want to bring a gun to work, some of them, and we tell them you can't, right? But it's okay for the public to bring a gun into it. Of course, it's illegal to use a firearm in an unlawful manner anyway. So, but just, we don't even have that ability. So I want to raise that awareness because it pains us at the park system. But I know that with your help and the community partners that we have, the council, the mayor, and people that are committed to public safety, that hopefully we can continue to advocate for that. That would help the park system a lot. So just playing that out there for you so that you're aware and you can do what Seattle voters do best. And we will work on the hour adjustments, as much of extra enforcement that we can do, and then working with our police department. The good news is that also under our charter, while park rangers do not have the authority to enforce laws across the city, the Seattle Police Department has the authority, and we work very closely with them. And if we ask them to be in our parks, and when they're there to help us with our hours and other park things, and they're there, they will do that. So that's the good news, is that we have that partnership. So thank you.
Thank you. speakers. All right, so we're going to go all the way to 7:30, which is a little less time than we thought, but this is your chance to ask questions. If you can keep them short, as short as you can, and our answers could be short as possible, just to get as many people that we can voices heard. So Layla will cover this side, and we'll start with you.
Okay, I don't need one. So first of all, thank you for your presentation. I'm really proud to be Charlotte's neighbor here. I had to show up this time. So the question I have to ask is vis-a-vis traffic. I heard you mention Harbor and Alki, but nothing about 56 nor 55th, and which we live right off 56. As you come down Lander, the cars are steady zooming by our homes, right? So are there going to be traffic cushions in those locations?
Yeah, so thank you. Nice to see you again. Yep. I've met on site in the impacted area directly with Charlotte. Remind me your name? Chris. Hey, Chris. On site directly with Venu and our experts at SDOT about a month, 2 months ago, I guess now. So great prime opportunity for an update. SDOT, thank you.
Thank you so much for the question, Charlotte. I was going to meet you after the meeting, but our intention is to, along with all the speed cushions on Alki and Harbor, I want to do the same thing on 56, put it all in one project. So, hopefully do that.
Thank you all very much for being here. It's really important. I would like to see if the office, commissioner, office, councilman, could provide information for each of us to contact our legislators and give that contact information. And each one of us, I challenge you, because I used to work at a congressional level, and the squeaky wheel does get the grease, and they need to hear from you about how you feel, not just in this context, but statewide. Because all politics is local, I know that, but all of us have to be advocates for public safety. Because I don't want you to have to go through something like this again. I lost 2 people in my life to gun violence, and they were very young. So, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you, great question. I would be happy to share out the information in a directory of how you can specifically contact legislators, and we'll share out the names of our 3 right here in the 34th legislative district. And you know, it is important to make your voices heard, and because these laws at the state level impact what we can do, and in some cases what we cannot do in Seattle. So again, it takes all of us working together. And don't worry about me and my feelings. I don't want to see the family. I don't want to see another Mubarak Adam. And I don't want to see another gentleman, you know, like, wish I knew his name, a 22-year-old who lost his life on Saturday morning. And those are the families that I know you care about, and I care about, we all care about. And so, anyways, yes, we can share that out. And please do follow up, everyone.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Yes. Sorry, points, right?
My name is Elida Bigotti, and my window was the one that was with the bigger hole. And I was all night waiting for them to leave. I went to have a cup of tea, and they're gonna leave. My wall in my kitchen was hit. The bullet went into the ceiling to the kitchen wall, from the kitchen wall to my bedroom door. I stepped on the shower. Not knowing that was part of that, I thought was part of the vacuum cleaner. Because I hear boom, 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 boom. I thought were fireworks with 4th of July so close. I thought are fireworks. But I don't go to sleep until these people leave, which means the police come, and I'm very happy when they come. My father was a policeman. But until the police is respected, nothing is going to change. And I tell you that very seriously. Nothing is going to change until parents control their children. Many things have to change. I live here for 55 years. I live in this condominium for 20 years, and this is just, I'm shaking, I was shaking. The police comes, 2 hours later, everybody's back. What is Elida doing? Standing looking through the window, waiting for them to leave. That's not life. That's not life. And now we are in charge of taking care of what happened in my place. I am an older lady, even if I don't look, I'm 80 years old, and I don't want to deal the rest of my life waiting for changes. Because the talk that I hear, I've been hearing this for the last 10 years or more. Then I appreciate what all you can do. But I might have to move out, which I didn't want to move out. And that's sad. Okay.
Thank you for sharing. Sir?
Mariano, 71 Harper. I know that you're going to do this and do that.
Get closer.
You're going to do this and do that, this plans and this and that. Right now, we have the Ballard Wildcat, $85,000, and he's still out. How come he's still out? Why can't you arrest him, take his car, at least take his car off?
He did.
Wait, we've been working on it.
I know you're working on it.
So quickly, look, the Hellcat guy, that dude is totally out of hand. And we at the council, like I mentioned at the outset, we are considering some strong legislation right now to address and better shut down people who come to our community and want to do it harm. We welcome. We want to make sure this is a welcoming community for all, but we also need people to respect this community as well. And you're right, ma'am. I'm so sorry, by the way. I can only imagine that same thing happened to some of my neighbors in Delridge, but I can only imagine, your own home. You must live on the second floor because Steve lived on the third floor, and I know, and so I saw. But you're right. There's only so much government can do, and I'm a firm believer in the power of what local government can do, which is why I decided to serve, and I'm honored to do that. But you're right, ma'am. There's only so much that we can do. Communities need to step up. We're not going to legislate our way out of this. We're not going to, enforce our way out of this. We need communities to step up as well. But it's the Hellcat guy. I don't know if it's the mayor's office or yeah.
I was previously at the city attorney's office. I don't work there currently, and I don't have the latest status update of the case. I think that is something that we can follow up with. I do know that he's been civilly infracted. I don't know what's going on with the criminal case. That is something that I'm happy to follow up with Councilmember Saka, and we can answer that directly.
So just a quick question. It seems that most of these crimes are committed by really young people. Is it too outlandish to have a curfew for major underage? In all seriousness,
Curfew for young kids. There may or may not be some state law implications of that, rather. But to the extent that's possible, from a local ordinance and implementation perspective, we're exploring. But I'm not aware offhand. I don't know if SPD.
I would love that. I can't get people who are booked for misdemeanor crimes booked into the jail. We have no capacity to take juveniles into custody unless they have committed a violent crime. So the problem, I think we go back to families, community ties, and that sort of thing. The government is no longer equipped to deal with juveniles committing minor infractions. I wish there were a way to manage it better, but at the end of the day, it goes back to the fabric of the community, the fabric of the family, and we're in a bad place right now. But if we had a curfew, there would be no place for me to take the kids.
address the cameras. We met with the city council last June, and 8 of the Alki community people went down and addressed and gave testimony to the council. They approved it. Equity and inclusion was one of the topics, and we talked about the good solution that those cameras will bring. The officers don't have to be involved. They don't have to give chase. As far as equity and inclusion, the cameras are colorblind. They don't care how much money you came from, or how much money you have, or where you came from, your race, your color, your creed. None of that matters. But the excuses that we've heard from the city, the excuses that we've heard from the city is that the funding wasn't there. And now it was approved in June of 2023. They were expecting to have them installed by the end of the year. And so what I can't stand about these situations is everybody points the finger. That's what's so nice of having all of you together. That's how we got rid of the RVs. We collectively worked with the city council, SDOT, everybody involved, SPD, blah, 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 the city council, got it done. And that, with the cameras, has to be done. We don't have time to wait. And I sent an email a couple weeks ago to all of you and just asked, what do we have to do? Wait for someone to die? And it just happened. Let's get it done.
Quick question, I'll just re-emphasize, you're absolutely right. I strongly support, and I like Deputy Mayor Emery, I probably sound like a squeaky record to her or a broken record to her, saying the same thing over and over and over and over and over. Again, for the avoidance of doubt, I strongly support implementation of speed cameras and potentially exploring CCTV type cameras. And I'm committed to making sure it's not a funding issue. I know, based on my conversation with the mayor yesterday. But we do have the experts right here. So SDOT, how can we best deliver this more efficiently?
Thank you so much. And to deliver this, it needs to be a true partnership between all of stakeholders, right? Thank you so much for your advocacy, continuing to advocate for speed safety cameras, right? Absolutely, right? It takes us a partnership between our mayor and the city council, basically funding the idea. It takes kind of a partnership between SDOT, SPD, and our Moniport system, because we all have costs that are associated with maintaining and operating these cameras. We have, SPD has costs and resources to review these violations and issue citations. We have costs associated with engineering them, constructing them, making sure that they are operational, and then the Moniport system too has ongoing costs, right? So we need kind of like resources from all, between various different agencies. We need that effort to be funded so that we can take the authorizations that are already available in the state law and operationalize them and install them in locations where there's a safety need, there's an, with inclusive community input.
They can pay for themselves, though.
Yeah, there is revenues that come in, right? And the state law is very specific about any net revenues that come from the speed safety cameras to reinvest in the community in various safety projects. Yes, there's a definite benefit from that perspective.
Thank you, baby. I heard costs and resources and costs about 10 times. Look, it's not that. They pay for themselves. Committed to look. I don't know if the mayor's office has any comments on that from your perspective, but that might be helpful as well.
Well, a couple of things. I think first of all, the mayor's office is supportive of pushing this forward. We've already articulated there is a barrier that we still need to work through in terms of the state law. I also want to provide an update regarding the Belltown Hellcat. He is pending trial. He is out because, again, reckless driving is not necessarily one of the charges that we can book in the King County Jail. It's not something that is under the power and discretion of the mayor's office and SPD. The King County Jail is run by the King County Executive's office. And so he is pending pre-trial, and on criminal charges, he also has, I don't know how many thousands of dollars 80,000 wrapped up in terms of infractions. So I just was able to just message a colleague, a former colleague, to ask for the update. But just know that the city attorney's office is incredibly invested in enforcing that. But we have to do what we can within the constraints of the fact that he was not able to be, the jail is not looking on that type of charge currently for misdemeanors.
I think I just want to add one bit of clarification, and I think Councilmember Saka has had great points, and Vanu is also articulating. There's a certain misunderstanding about funding that had been in prior budget cycles for automated enforcement cameras. That funding was really tied to school zone cameras. And it's not, and that is something that is a separate style of automated enforcement, right? It reflects our joint interest in using all of the tools available to get a safer behavior on the streets. So I think Councilmember Saka is correct that funding is something that can be found over time. It is something that can be dealt with. There will still need to be us following the new state law requirements for doing equity and safety analyses. So while we are here to say, and I think we just talked about some of the work that SDOT's committed to do this summer, we're here to say we're with you on this journey, and you'll just have to be with us as we do the things that the state is also requiring us to do in terms of doing the equity analysis, doing the safety analysis, and also working with the mayor's office and the council member's office to just set up all the steps needed.
Can I?
You know,
thank
on
you.
that subject-
Thank you. I mean, it's a great point, and the last bit of it, because it's so funny, that's the challenge. Working through all it's a non-trivial amount of overhead and process imposed by state law, and that is what the city is currently working its way through. But it's clear we're aligned, all of us. So let us all act with more urgency to bring those to life. It's an England. Thank you.
Okay, so the speed camera was the top issue that was sent to us. So I know you have a lot of questions, and I think the speakers can stay afterwards a little bit and talk more. But let's hear from some other things you have.
Yeah, just wanted to mention, so I mean, Alki Beach it's a beautiful area. It's scenic. We're all fortunate to live here. You're gonna get a lot of young people, reckless people at the beach, no matter what you try to do, ultimately. It's an unfortunate truth. But when it comes to the speed cushions on Harbor Avenue and some of these roads that are 30, 35 miles an hour speed limit, you're gonna get a major traffic issue, cars slowing down to half that speed, 10 miles an hour just to go over the speed bumps, and then, go back up to 30 miles an hour, whatever the speed limit is. Has there been discussion on, because I guess speed bumps are the only solution that I've heard here aside from the speed cameras, but if you're gonna install those, then take away the speed cushions. On the height of the speed cushions to affect cars that are going 50 plus miles an hour, but everyone who's going the normal speed of traffic isn't affected by them. Has there been any way for public comment on that, or ways for me to express my opinion in writing?
Thank you so much for that question. There's a small difference between speed humps and speed cushions that we install. The one that you see today out there on Artery Avenue and Alki Avenue are what we call speed cushions. Basically, they have a small slot in between them that allows emergency vehicles to pass through unimpeded. But they do impact all passenger cars and motor vehicles. There is no way of getting around selectively impacting a certain class of vehicles, but we do take care of looking at how we design them, right? The height and all are kind of like already embedded into our standards that we practice, right? So we look at kind of like where we want to make sure that we calm the general traffic, but still give the ability for our first responders and our emergency vehicles to go through unimpeded. So that's why we install speed cushions on basically arterials. But when it comes to residential streets, we do speed humps that go completely across the road. Yeah, we also kind of like do speed visions along with lane narrowing and hopefully kind of like, increase the impact of our traffic calming efforts on these sections.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the speed cameras would be great, but all you really need initially is a sign that says speed cameras. And I think all you
Thanks for that comment. Scooters are something that we do see a lot in beach areas and certainly in trails. We do, as a city, work with each of the companies on assessing their behavior, assessing their maintenance of the scooters, assessing where they're dropping the scooters and how they're managing and maintaining the supply, basically. As people are riding them, that is something we also work on education. We work with the companies, for example, so that your first ride has a throttled speed. So the first time you download the app and you pay for a trip, that the maximum speed you can go is limited so that you have a chance both to keep yourself safe as well as to keep others safe. So it is something we work on from the company side, trying to influence Lime and Bird and the other scooter companies to do their part to educate their user through the app, as well as making sure that we are trying to educate people on the correct way to ride and to use scooters. It is something we do see. It is a tool that can be misused like many other tools in our lives, but certainly in an area like West Seattle with some of the limitations that people have around hours of access to bus service, hours of bus service, and ability to get around, scooters do provide some meaningful first last mile trips for people that might work at Alki and have a late night hour and then have trouble getting to the bus, or might need to get a mile to where they're going. So we've seen them providing very meaningful mobility solutions for people, but we're aware of the concerns, we're aware of some of the things, and do work with the companies actively every day to help them be partners in managing the behavior.
But given we only have about 50
Hello.
winter, then why would we?
Hi. The transportation budget levy is about to be finalized for the next 8 years. There's emphasis on things like paving. Well, paving potholes those are natural speed bumps. And, if public safety is our #1 priority, then that should be the #1 priority in the transportation budget. And we're setting that for the next, I think it's anemic. There's not enough in there for public safety, and we should increase like Vision Zero and all the funding for all these issues in that transportation levy. And I think voters would approve it if you put the emphasis on that in the ballot.
Yeah, so thank you. Question about levy and transportation policy. You're right, there isn't a direct and obvious nexus. I think the main purpose and focus of this conversation is on some of the direct things we can do to impact what happens in this tragedy as a result of gun violence. But the levy does include, and we are finalizing the details on that legislatively right now. And ultimately, voters are going to decide. But it does include some strong Vision Zero investments. It includes some strong safety investments and pedestrian safety investments. But yeah, point heard and taken. Thank you.
Okay, I think everybody's still engaged, so I'm going to keep going for a few more minutes, okay? All right.
Why do politicians not say anything about the families needing to be involved with their children? Because that is exactly what is the problem. If they would just speak that the families need to be involved with the care of their kids. I mean, what is a 17-year-old doing with a gun?
Couldn't agree more. That's what me and this lady had a one of our neighbors had an exchange about. There's a certain amount of things that the government is positioned to do, and there's a certain amount of individual and community personal responsibility. And so yes, you're right.
Okay, we're going to take a couple more. Keep it tight, please.
Thank you. I live in Seabird on Harbor Ave, and I get a bird's eye view of everything that's happening there. And I've noticed that as far as the speed cushions are concerned, everyone slows down for those speed cushions. Thank you. Okay, but as soon as they get over them, they speed up really, really fast until the next speed cushion. So in the middle of those two speed cushions, there needs to be another speed cushion. It's like it's not rocket science. And then out in the park, in the parking lot, okay, if same thing. The speed cushions work, speed bumps work, but they do the donuts, okay, between these speed cushions. So if there's another one all the way across, halfway between those, they wouldn't be able to do that. Just an observation, okay? And then lighting, those big poles for the docks that they have. If there were, let's say, some solar panels with some lights down onto the dock, light really does a number on bad activity. So if the parking lot was lit, you wouldn't have a lot of this. So those are just my suggestions.
Great suggestions, and great news is we have the experts at SDOT right here. So we heard some specific recommendations for additional speed humps and cushions and additional lighting. Couldn't agree more. We need a bevy of options, including some of the things you mentioned, to better activate some of our shared spaces here and the built environment around. But these are the experts that would design. I don't know, sort of any of those specific suggestions were part of the plans.
That's exactly why, in addition to the speed cushions, we are also pursuing that lane narrowing, right? So, there may be kind of how we space these speed cushions, where we install them, and how we combine that with how the whole street looks like, right? So this time around, we're going to do both the speed cushions and the lane narrowing to double the impact and the effect that we can have.
Okay, a couple more questions, and then people can stay after speakers.
Hi, I'm Cassandra, I live on Harbor. I had a question about the closing of the parks and the boat ramp. When the police do come for that, what is it you need to leave now? Is there a consequence? What is stopping them from coming right back like they typically do? And I'm assuming, this is probably not a broad reach, that the people that are out late trespassing are also the ones who probably have legal guns. What is being done besides just a warning or?
So it's a great question. I heard a police enforcement question, so Chief Moore, I'll hand that to you. I also heard a parks question, maybe, in case Superintendent Diaz might have comments on that. Right.
Yeah, well, and then I can ask the police to opine on the shooting or shooting off of guns and what's the violations there. But one of the things we can do that we can talk about, also lighting is something that we've explored at the other problem locations that I've mentioned on light poles, so we can also look at that. But we can also work to close the gates so that we can try to not have people in the park to do that. And so that's one of the things that we want to do is look at perhaps adjusting the hours, closing the gates if necessary earlier so that we can try to prevent as many people from being there in the first place. It's not the perfect solution, but it's some of the environmental changes that we were talking about. And then, I don't know if the police.
Answering your question about guns, in order for us to search a car and seize a gun, we have to have probable cause to arrest the person. And I will tell you, we are very aggressive when we do an arrest to search the car, and we recover a lot of guns. So they're being taken out of the car, but we can't search a car if we're just doing a traffic stop or kicking somebody out of the park. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. When they're caught in a closed park?
What's happened after?
What's the consequence?
What's the consequence?
What's the consequence?
Of somebody being in a park after dark?
Yes.
They get a citation, it's not a physical arrest. Sure.
Sunday morning, I go into work at 2 a.m. I see a congregation of 50-something people following. My estimation is doing 10 comes 10. The spud and the rest of them. No more was down there. The young launch head. And there's cops down there. I stopped and walked on and said, we've got people down in half of the creek. So the notion of closing the beach is a bunch of hot air. It's a bunch of hot air.
I can barely hear you, sir.
About the cameras, the day after the young lady was shot over by Ezel's Chicken, I drive up to Fort Tuck Road to my ex-wife's place on 22nd Jefferson to pick up my son. I got stopped by SPD for stolen plates. They didn't give me the excuse or reason. The officer comes back to the driver's side and says, I told him, because I got Facebook page to see how it looks like, whatever. So I tell him who I am. He then comes back and tells me, sorry, my father can't read. A week later, I'll stop at the fairground on Vashon with my 22-year-old. I'm approached by King County. Stolen plates, stolen car. One day I go to work, I talk to the sheriff's deputy, he runs the plates, he looks down, he's trying to figure out why I get stopped by SPD. Richard right here. Plates because we run all American sequence, like 6-7 other states. It comes up stolen out of Wisconsin. My point is, someone's going to get shot as I talk to law enforcement and the city, county, and state about family that's in county, you're going to get somebody who's a little jacked up. Come to find out a stolen plate or stolen car stop is ground for the officers to approach the gun for. If that kid would need a move, not calling right when they stop.
Okay, sir.
My point is, the camera, the process that you go through and put in place, even like closing down the beach temporary, when you're not going to get presence down there, it's just a bunch of hot air.
Okay.
I'm sorry you feel that way, sir.
I know. I know. So make a presence. Shut it back to the prosecutors and make them do their day job.
I wish I could.
Okay, so we have one, sir, we're gonna end, you can talk afterwards to the panel. We have one more question and.
Call me back about the water on Airport Way that called you last fall. You haven't responded.
Excuse me, I have the mic now. I just have a simple question, and it's for SDOT, Parks, and SPD. You guys are going to come and close up our meeting on a regular basis now at 11 o'clock, right?
We will do our very best to do that.
Okay, so my question is, a couple of times, because the diagonal parking area is adjacent to the park and on our meeting, a couple of times the police came and cordoned off the diagonal parking, which stopped. They did not come back. And if that can happen, that kind of resolves the issue for that area.
It was a clever thing for the officer to do, probably not legal, but it worked.
Why not legal?
Oh, I see what you're saying, I'm sorry. I will check with the district officers. I heard about them putting the crime tape across. That may work for a while. Well, I'm going to try and get traffic officers out there so that people are actually getting a ticket and break the behavior.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I want to say this has been one of the best forums we've had over here in West Seattle in years. I welcome you all. And, yes,